This week, we meet David, a man who's known exactly what he wanted from a very early age. Then he just made it happen. Starting with his education, then his career, and finally his marriage and family, David had it all, and life was perfect. But like a lot of marriages, David's marriage wasn't as perfect as he thought it was. But by the time reality sets in, it's too late to avoid a very costly and acrimonious divorce process. We can all learn something from this week's episode. Welcome to My Crazy Divorce.
I'm a failure as a husband. I'm a failure as a man.
It's just, I'm beautiful and I'm bright and I deserve better.
It's a great day, I'm feeling good. Oh, the possibilities of what I could, do with the world at my fingertips. My imagination brings a smile up to my lips.
Welcome to My Crazy Divorce, everyone. I'm your host, Tom Milligan. I first met this week's guest on a podcast collaboration site. Dave runs a podcast called Divorce Devil, so it made perfect sense for us to connect. Dave will tell you more about his show later on, but I knew right away that I'd found a kindred spirit. Before we get to Dave's story, always remember that I'm not an attorney, so I don't give legal advice. If anything I say is ever sounding like legal advice, just trust me. It's just a coincidence. And unless I tell you otherwise, my guests aren't attorneys either. So if you need legal advice, contact a licensed attorney. Now, I'm asked all the time if ourdivorce.com works if the divorcing couple has children, owns a business, has property, stuff like that. And the answer is always yes. The only requirement for a divorcing couple to use ourdivorce.com is that they're both willing to compromise and come to an agreement on how to handle their children, business, or property. And never forget, ourdivorce.com doesn't cost anything unless it works for you, even though that would be your own fault. So there's literally no risk to give it a try. So even if you think your divorce is too complex, try ourdivorce.com before calling an attorney. Remember, you have nothing to lose, and you could save thousands. Now, one last thing before I introduce you to Dave. If you'd like to share your crazy divorce story on our show, please visit mycrazydivorce.com and apply to be a guest. I'd really love to hear from you. Okay, are you guys finally ready? Well, good. Let's meet Dave. All right, David Webb, welcome to My Crazy Divorce, and thanks for being here.
Well, Tom, it's my pleasure. I was thinking about this all week. Let's start the story with a little bit of humor. I was born a poor black child. There we go, man. That sets the tone.
There you go. I love it. When we had our first conversation, I kind of figured we were going to have a good time during this one. So let's just keep that going.
Steve
I'm
Martin.
excited to hear your story.
Steve Martin, the jerk.
That's right. Well, let's talk about that early life when you were born a poor black child. Let's start with that. Where were you born?
Born in Chicago, Illinois. Moved to Arkansas. Parents were from Arkansas. Moved to Kansas City, where I eventually grew up from age 5 to high school. Mom was a teacher, taught 5th grade. Dad was a early osteopath. He was a DO. Became a DO probably I was 10. One of my fond memories, and you probably can't do this now, is that we would go to the med school on weekends, and they would take turns taking the sheets off the cadavers. So we would go grab the sheets off the cadavers and take them to the laundry. But I'm pretty sure the 10-year-old can't do that stuff now. But it was a blast. I've always wanted to be a dentist since the 6th grade. I'm one of those weird ones. Never wanted to be a DO or a doctor because my dad was gone all the time. And I realized that I wanted to be home. Our family dentist was not a real nice guy, so he wasn't a mentor to me. He was more of something I didn't want to be like.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun. But he had this assistant that was really nice looking. That's a different story. So fast forward to college, went to Creighton University, Omaha, Nebraska, Jesuit college, undergrad chemistry, grad school dentistry. Moved to Colorado, moved to Denver first, back in late '80s, doing the RTC. I mean, you couldn't find a job. I had a hard time finding a practice. I started from scratch. End up dating around. Met uh, my ex, the bicycle, on a blind date. This is gonna get good.
Well, let's back up a little bit before we get to meeting Bicycle. I want to know a little bit
All right.
more about about you, what made you you. So, do you have siblings?
Yes, I have a younger brother, 4.5 years younger. He lives in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania,
Wow.
and he's married with two boys. Just a small family growing up. Growing up in the Midwest. The church thing, the Boy Scout thing, Cub Scout thing. Just a traditional Midwest family.
Like, just real quick, are you an Eagle Scout?
I never made it that far. I
Okay.
wasn't focused. Focused enough to tread on teeth, but not focused enough to be an Eagle Scout.
My parents had a rule because my grandfather was an Eagle Scout, my dad was an Eagle Scout, and they said all of their sons, before all five of us were born, they made a commitment that all of their boys would be Eagle Scouts. So they
Wow.
made a rule that we had to get our Eagle Scout before we could drive.
Wow.
So 5 Eagle Scouts is what they got.
So did it
And
help you in life? Did it help you in life?
I know how to tie knots.
Well, there you go.
I
Hey,
don't know if that's
help is
helpful.
help. Hey, help is help regardless.
No, I think that Boy Scouts was a really great experience for me. So I can't, I learned a lot and, had fun camping with all my friends. And that's pretty much what Boy Scouts was for me.
I did do. My parents did send me to YMCA camp like 6 years in a row down in the Ozarks. So we
Hmm.
learned how to shoot 22s, bow and arrow archery, sailing. That was fun. That was one of the best times of my life. When we growing up was going to YMCA camp in the Ozarks. That was a blast.
So you mentioned church. Was religion or church a real big part of your family's life?
I wouldn't say big. It was more, go to church on Sundays, youth group on Friday nights. I had friends who went to church 7 days a week. So it was nothing like that. It wasn't the Pentecostal, grab a snake, hold a snake, milk the snake, none of that stuff.
No rubbing rattlesnake bellies for you
No,
guys.
no, 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 no grabbing them by the tail and trying to swing them around. No.
Was it more of just a non-denominational, or were you
It was United
Baptist or
Methodist.
okay,
United Methodist.
Methodist?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
And it wasn't staunch Methodist. It was more conservative Methodist. So that was
got
that
it.
was fine. Yeah.
So when you were growing up, traditional Midwest family, as you said, but tell me about your parents' marriage.
That's interesting. They pretty much started fighting as early as I can remember. It wasn't a real good thing. You were very happy to see dad come home, but you knew there was always going to be a fight. So my parents divorced when I was in undergrad.
Hmm.
So, and we'll talk later about this twice divorce thing where you have parents divorce and then you're divorced. So, that was, and the fact they got divorced was less stressful. Like it was needed for the
Hmm.
family to survive. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So me and my brother were like, hey, you guys can stay together, get divorced. So,
So it was a relief for you, even
oh
though.
my, yes, extremely. Gosh,
Why
yes.
did you wait so long?
Yes, yes. Do this sooner. You know, they did us a disservice by staying together so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, a lot of people do that, which is unfortunate. So when you were, so you wanted to be a dentist when you were in, basically 11 or 12 years old. So that's never
Yep.
wavered. But tell me about your social life. I mean, you're in high school. Who wants to date the future dentist?
Well, that's a different story too. I went to an all boys Jesuit high school.
Oh,
And
Now that's interesting. So you're a
yeah,
Methodist in a Jesuit high school. Isn't Jesuit a Catholic thing?
yes, yes. We used to call them the Gestapo of Catholics. Um,
Well,
uh,
Shiite Catholics.
yeah. The fact I was there was because my mom, my mom taught in the Kansas City, Missouri school district, and it was crap. So she didn't want her sons going there. So she sent us to private school. And I don't know what you heard, but Jesuit education is like top notch,
Yeah.
And my first year there was 74, and they had stopped beating kids by then. So like it was a good time to go to Jesuit high school because before that it was like Blues Brothers, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Gonna go see the penguin.
Oh yeah, a mission from God.
But I gotta tell you, that is my favorite line from the Blues Brothers when Jake picks up Elwood and he says, "Where are we going?" He goes, "We're gonna go see the penguin." And he goes,
Penguin.
"No fucking way." Just the way he says it.
Hey, the penguin's almost like the devil.
I know.
It's not a positive thing. They don't make movies like that anymore,
They
man.
really don't. I saw a thing on TikTok the other day that said, Blazing Saddles 2022. And the the show starts and then it says the end.
Because you can't show anything.
You can't show any.
You can't. The only thing you can show is Alec Harris Mungo Pawn in Game of Thrones. And then the movie's over.
It's true. You can't make fun of anybody. You
Oh,
can't joke about anything.
oh
So
heck no.
okay.
We talk about. I was talking with the patient, and we're talking about commercials. And remember the commercial with the Indian guy in the canoe and the pollution. He's got the tear. You
Sure.
can't show that probably. You can't do the Frito Bandito commercials. There's nothing you can do anymore. So
No.
times have changed.
No. Yeah, it's one could argue we could spend the rest of this show talking about whether or not things are changing for the better or for the worse. But
Yep.
well, let's get back to this all boys
All right.
Jesuit school here. So you're in this all boys school. Most of the kids, I assume, are Catholic.
Yes.
And
95% probably. Yeah.
this is in which city?
Kansas City, Missouri.
All right. So let's talk about the racial makeup of that school.
Um, Probably 800 students between 9, 10, 11, 12th grade. Probably, there are about 20 blacks, 20
Okay.
blacks. Yeah, yeah. And interesting story. You should ask that. This is during when they were trying to make Martin Luther King a holiday. So um, the principal called all the black students into his office, and he goes, "Hey, I'm gonna give all the black students next Monday off in honor of Martin Luther King." So I'm like, "Sweet, no school." So I go home and tell my mom. I say, "Hey, mom, the principal is going to give us the day off in honor of Martin Luther King." She looks at me. "Take your ass to school." End of story. End of story.
Really
Yeah, that's all she said.
interesting.
And every black student was there.
Really?
For that date. Yes, yes, yes. So,
I wonder. Do
um,
you know why? I'm just curious. So I mean, just that
um,
she didn't want you to miss a day.
I think from her standpoint that she didn't want me to get behind by
Uh-huh.
taking a day off. Things are tough enough. Why get behind? And and I've kind of stuck to that. So every Martin Luther King holiday now at my office, I always work.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah. And when I have black and white patients ask me, they go, "Why are you working today?" I said, "Well, your ass is here." You're welcome. All
Well,
righty
there you
then.
go.
End of story. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so
So,
I do want to ask a question, not about Martin Luther King, although that is something we could probably go down a rabbit hole. But I, you're the first guest I've had that went to an all boys or all girls school for that matter. But
Mhm.
what kind of social life do you have when you're in an all boys school? And what kind of
Not
sports?
not bad. All boys schools kind of excel at sports because you have a bunch of boys. So the picking pool, we were 5A. I was little back then, but the football team went to state almost every year I was there. I
Really?
mean, basketball, football is just phenomenal. Debate. Jesuit High School is very, very busy. So my class of 200, there's probably 40 lawyers, 10 doctors, 12 dentists. You cannot you cannot knock Jesuit education.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal, phenomenal. And in terms of dating, um, so there were two all boys schools in Kansas City. So it was Rockhurst, my high school, and there was this one school called Pembroke Country Day. And no way I was going to Pembroke Country Day School.
What's their mascot?
Pembroke Country Day. And so she gave me the choice between the two schools, and I chose Rockhurst. And there's probably three or four all girl schools in Kansas City. So it was kind of like a camaraderie where like you dated girls from all girl schools.
Hmm,
So they weren't in class with you, but you did stuff together like mixers and things like that. Yeah.
got it.
So
Okay.
it wasn't bad. But having the all male cheerleaders, I had to get past that. That was a tough one to swallow, those 4 years.
Yeah,
Seeing
that is
guys
an
up there
interesting.
cheering, it's like, maybe not, guys. Yeah, so
Yeah, that's I never even thought about that. So, well, okay. Well, let's talk about your ex. We're going to call her Bicycle. Um,
bicycle.
I don't know, just so everyone's aware, David chose that name, not me. Okay. Uh, so where where was Bicycle born?
Um, East Illinois. East
Okay.
East St. Louis, Illinois. There we go. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And let's kind of the same questions, but let's just briefly talk about her parents and their marriage and home life. Just kind of give us a paint the picture of her family
Oh, she
life.
she had a brother, three sisters, tight-knit family, Air Force family. Mom was a homemaker, typical Air Force family, traveled around the nation. She's the youngest, the baby. Yeah, the baby.
Of five.
Five, yep. Yep.
And to your knowledge, of course, you didn't live there. So did her parents did they seem to have a good marriage? Did they fight a
I
lot?
think it was a good marriage. But by all means, I think it was a great household.
Okay.
Yep.
And she's close to her siblings.
Yep.
Okay. Do you know about her religion growing up? How did that affect her life?
We were married in a Missouri Synod Lutheran Church. And if you know about Lutheran Church, the Missouri Synod is kind of very conservative, staunch conservative. Um, so it was interesting. It was like going to an all boys school because Missouri Synod is pretty much all white, and the Jesuit high school was all white. So I think we had some of the same similarities growing up.
Got it. Wow. And just out of curiosity, is she also a black lady?
Yep.
Okay. Just that would have thrown a whole nother wrench into the
Heck yeah.
yeah.
Mocha kid.
Well, okay. So you realize your dream. You go to college, you become a dentist. Somewhere along the way, you and Bicycle meet. Let's talk about that first meeting.
So after graduating from dental school, I came to Denver and I wanted to be in Colorado. Never thought about Colorado Springs. I had some bartending experience when I was in undergrad and grad. Matter of fact, I worked at a Playboy Club in Omaha. One of the few people to say that they bartended at a Playboy Club.
Wow.
So that's a nice resume stopper. Pay, Playboy Club.
And that's what
Um,
you want your dentist to be.
Yes. Hello. Yes. I don't remember any drinks. Yeah, you just call them body by Fisher, brain by Mattel. Yeah.
That's
If you
awesome.
know what I mean. Yes.
Yeah.
So I came to Denver after graduating, worked in a Mexican restaurant, bartending, couldn't find a job. Like I said, that was during the RTC days, the Charles Keating days. The saves and loans were falling
Mm,
like flies. Banks were giving money, so I begged the bank to start a practice, and I started to practice. I bought an old practice, and then I revitalized it. I was working day to day, wasn't very busy. Her sister was a patient of mine, and uh, one day she was in getting some work done, and she goes, "Hey, Doctor Webb, my sister's coming to town. Would you like to meet her?" And I said, what the heck? Like a good meal. You gonna feed me? Hell yeah, feed me. That's all I wanted at that
right.
point because I wasn't eating very well. A lot of snack ramen, and that's when snack ramen was like 5 cents a,
Right.
a package. Now it's like probably $5 a package. But so she was in town. She invited me over. I met her. We went out, had a good time. Went out every night she was in town. Kept in touch. Went out to visit her in Sacramento. Um, Stayed in touch. Got serious. Um, Married. Uh, let's see. Engaged in 8 months. Married in 13. So it was pretty
Wow.
fast. Yeah,
So from meeting to
fast.
marriage is about 13 months.
13 months. Yeah, yeah,
And she was living out in Sacramento, did you say?
yep, yep.
So
And I
you
moved
didn't
out
like
here.
move in together prior to marriage or anything?
Nah, she wanted a ring, man. She was rough on that. She was like staunch. I think it was that staunch Lutheran stuff. I want a ring. It's like, okay.
Divorce doesn't have to be complicated. Our Divorce.com's 3-step procedure provides a simple and affordable process that you can follow at your own pace. Save thousands by visiting ourdivorce.com today.
So you're dating slash engaged. So how long until you were actually engaged?
8 months.
8 months. Oh, you said that already.
Yep.
So 8 months in, you ask her to marry you. Is there any special engagement story?
No, well, it's kind of corny. We were in Kansas City visiting my mom, and I had bought her a ring the weekend before she came. So I picked her up at the airport. We drove to Kansas City, saw my mom. Met my mom for the first time. So we're sitting there on the floor watching some NBA playoff game, and I slip out this ring, and she had an old ring on her finger, and I took that off and put the new ring on, and she said, "What's this?" And that's how it happened. So a little
Oh,
little smooth. That's when I was smooth back in the day. Now I'm like,
that is pretty smooth.
yeah. It's like hey, yeah. So
So I've been in sales most of my life, and that's called the assumed close.
oh
You
yeah,
didn't even ask. You just slipped a
nope.
ring on. There was no
Oh yeah,
questions asked.
duh. Hello.
Good
Have,
for
have
you,
you have
man.
you met me?
Hey, I'm learning.
I was born a poor
S-
black child. Come on now.
All I need is this remote control.
Yes,
Um,
shithead.
oh my gosh, we could go all day, couldn't we?
Oh man,
All right. So you're engaged for about what, 5 months, give or take.
5 months. Yep.
She's still living far away. So where did you get married? Did you get married in
In
Colorado Springs?
Sacramento.
Oh, in Sacramento.
No, Sacramento, hotter than hell. Married in the Lutheran church. Standing at the altar, there was a window, this this stained glass window, and the sun was just blaring right on my forehead the whole ceremony. And it was probably 104 degrees.
Oh,
And Sacramento gets hot. And one of my friends was an usher, and people were coming in, and he was saying, "Weight loss sauna, come have a seat," because the air conditioner went out. It
oh
was so
no.
hot. It was just hot, hot, hot. Yeah.
Oh, so aside from, I always like to ask this question. Aside from it being 104 degrees and having a laser welded onto your forehead during the ceremony, were there any red flags that you looking back, can you look back and say, "Oh crap, I should have seen
Not
that"?
one. Not one.
Not one.
Not one.
Wow, good for you. Well, okay. So let's talk about your families. Traditional Midwest families, both of them. It sounds like hers maybe not as traditional because of they were moving all over the place, but still tight families. Everybody got along. No one was fighting over anything at the wedding.
No. Great
Okay,
wedding.
and
Boring,
then so
great wedding. Hot.
boring, great, hot wedding.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So your married life then. So congratulations. David and Bicycle are married. And, you know, let's talk about that marriage. You're trying to build a dental practice
Yep.
still. So she moves out to Denver or Colorado Springs.
We drive from Sacramento to Colorado Springs. She had a Honda Prelude, and we packed this
Ooh.
Prelude, oh man, to the brim. And so we're driving California, Utah, Wyoming, and then down to Colorado Springs. We stopped one night, and it was a long drive in that little car. We get to Colorado Springs. She looks for a job. Uh, she eventually finds one like right across from the townhome we were renting, so that was nice. Things are great, man. Things, this is married life. I'm in it. Come home see my wife every day. She's she's cooking. Little dumb spats that don't really matter, but life is good. Life is good.
So you made a good team.
Yep, very good team.
And at that point, did your practice start picking up or were you still trying to make ends meet or
It was picking up. I ended up moving to a different location where I am now, probably a year after we got married, and built it up a little bit bigger. I used to work 6 days a week, and over the years, this is my 34th year. Over the years, I'm down to 3.5. So I went from 6 to 5.5 to 5. Did that route. Um, it's been a good ride, and I still like it.
so you're married, money isn't like a major problem. You're not rich or anything in the beginning, but you're comfortable. Sounds like.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, things are going good. She gets a job with Farmers Insurance as underwriter. We build a house. Um, the first kid comes. Things are good. Things are
How
really
many
good.
kids did you end up having?
Three. So the first two are 15 months apart. The second two are 22 months apart. So it's like bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
Um, when you have more kids and parents, man, it's a whole different world, as you know.
Yes.
Um, but since my dad was gone all the time, I was big into sports with my kids. So they played every sport: t-ball, volleyball, soccer, basketball, every single sport that the YMCA had, they played. And I coached too.
Yeah.
So
And by
I was
then your
busy.
practice was doing well enough that you could take the time off and
Yep.
be with them. Good
Yep.
for you.
Yep.
And did Bicycle continue working throughout your marriage or did she
She came in and stopped working after the third kid was born.
yeah.
Yeah. And then she was a homemaker, and things were good, and she took care of the house, and I worked. By then I was probably doing 4.5 days a week, half day Fridays, or yeah, half day Fridays.
So this is the part of the story that's always not a surprise to anyone because the show is called My Crazy Divorce, everyone.
Yep.
So guess what? These two don't make it. Um, but let's talk about when that happened and kind of tell us the story because so far we've painted this great picture. You're married, you're having kids, you're making money, you've got the career you've wanted since you were 11 years old. I mean, life is perfect, but then
Yeah.
it's not. Was it a gradual thing? Was it overnight? Did you see it coming? Just tell us that story.
I think it was more of a gradual thing, and I didn't see it coming. She After the kids were probably second, third grade, she went back to work, and things kind of changed after that. Um, it became more of a power struggle. And I tell people that no divorce is 100% one person's fault. And And when she pushed, I pushed, or she pushed, I shouldn't have pushed. But it got to the point where it was just antagonistic, and that's the road we took, and that's what ultimately broke us up.
So just fighting.
Yep, yep.
So
Which
any
I've learned from that. Which I've learned from that in my future relationships, big time. Humans hopefully learn from their mistakes.
hopefully,
Hopefully, yeah,
knock on wood, right? I mean,
yeah.
that's the
That's the caveat.
well,
That's a caveat of life, I think.
just and again, it's an interesting thing that we have on this show because clearly what we're doing is we're telling a story, but the story we're not here just because we want to hear soap operas. We're here to learn, and we're here to, like you say, learn from not only our own mistakes but hopefully from the mistakes of others. And as you've just said, you owned up that you were part of the cause, whether it's 1% or 99% or
Yep.
anything in between. You own
Correct.
your portion.
Very, very much so. Yeah.
So let's talk. Let's dig a little bit deeper into that. What happened? I mean, you said it got antagonistic. Were you fighting over sex, fighting over how the kids were raised, fighting over money? What was it?
It was more money. For example, I remember a time where she wanted a new car, and I said no, and she goes, "Well, I'll get it by myself." And it just that rabbit hole that you go down, and you end up saying words that really hurt without saying them almost, and they bite you in the ass. And so it's just a gradual build of that antagonistic. I want to do this. No, I want to do that. You can't tell me I can't do that. I'm gonna do this anyway. And it got to the point where, but she was done more quicker than I was done. I was ready to kind of work it out because we went to counseling a couple of times, and I got to tell you this one story. We went to this one counselor, and um, I could do no right. I mean, she was hard on me. And so I called the husband of the wife who referred this counselor to us. And I said, Bob, he goes, what? I said, was the counselor that you guys went to kind of hard on you? He goes, man, she's a man hater.
Oh no.
And I say, Bob, I agree. Totally agree.
Oh, see, that's
So that kind of gave us a
w-
setback. Yeah.
true or
Not
false. That's a horrible thing that someone even would feel that because your counselor's supposed to be that neutral.
neutral person. Oh no. Oh no. And so we did a couple of counselors, and it got to the point where she was done, and I I think it was more of that the grass might be greener on the other side, and that's where that rabbit hole kind of tumbles, and I tried to save it, and as a matter of fact, when she pulled the trigger for divorce, we went to counseling, and she rescinded it. And about a year later, she pulled it again. So I said, okay, let's go. So, yeah, it was a double
Okay.
pull.
Okay. So we're about to get into the divorce process. And so I think we're kind of easing our way into that. So if I can repeat what you just said, just to make sure, you guys are fighting over money and other things. She says, or at least intimates, that maybe it's just best that we're apart, grass may be greener, and files for divorce and then pulls it back. You
Correct.
continue the counseling.
Yeah.
Then a year later, she says, I'm out. And you say, see ya.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a wreck after the first filing. The second filing, just like you said, I was ready. Okay, let's go. Let's, it's, another caveat is, you got to be happy. If neither one of you is happy, man, it ain't worth it.
You see it all over the place where people talk about you can't, no one can make you happy. And I agree with that. Your happiness needs to come from within.
Yeah.
But someone can really piss you off,
Oh,
and
yeah. Make you sad. Oh, hell yeah.
they can make you unhappy, but they can't make you happy.
Yeah.
Uh,
Correct.
well, okay. So let's talk about that. When did this happen? Let's get some kind of put some timing on this. So you'd been married for how long when she filed the first time?
Ooh. So let's say married in 90, filed the first time in 08,
Oh,
filed the
so
second
18
time in
years.
'09. Yeah, '09. Um, yep, '09. And I think she was really surprised when she filed the second time and she told me, I said, okay, no emotion. Okay, let's go.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Because once you're done, you're done.
Did it just creep up on you to the point where it was too late by the time you realized it? Or could you have fixed this if you were to go back in time?
Playing armchair quarterback, um, I could have fixed it early, but after it started creeping, I don't think there was no way to stop that runaway train. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the old adage that you boil frogs, but you put them in warm water, not hot water,
Yep.
and then turn the heat up slowly or they'll jump right out. And so they don't even know it's coming. And that's unfortunate that that happens in marriages too often.
Correct.
Okay, so you went through counseling for a while, a year or two at least, and it seemed like both of you were trying to make it work, but um do you know, was there so she filed both times. You're not
Correct.
the one
Yep.
who
Yep.
instigated the action. Was there like a final straw that you know of?
I just think it was a culmination of everything that was going on. It wasn't one final straw, one final act, one final decision. I think it was just a culmination of everything together that she was done. Um, um, Looking back on it now, um, like I said, you can always play armchair quarterback and do things different, but just have to take what it is at this point.
Mhm. And your kids at that point, if I'm doing my math correctly, they were what, like 10, 12, and 13, something like that?
They were late high school and middle school. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So a little older than I thought, but how did they take it?
They were crushed. We were talking earlier about, staying for the kids. They were crushed. I was crushed. By the time the second filing came around, like it was no big deal. We did. Um, she did. Bicycle did pull that old adage. Since I filed, you have to leave, and there's no law for that. And I tell guys, you don't have to leave the house. That's
Mhm.
that's back in the '70s and '60s and '50s. That Kramer versus Kramer crap. So I moved downstairs. We had a pretty big house. I had a futon in the home theater, got some Egyptian cotton sheets, had my little bachelor pad, saw my kids every morning, every night. And we lived like that for about 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And some guys are like, I can't live with her. I said, you have to remove yourself from her. It's all about the kids at that point. It's nothing to do with her at all.
This was after the first filing.
The first finding, yeah, yeah.
And then so I people have heard this story, but I'm going to tell it again. When Trinity, my ex-wife, left, now she had an affair that I found out about in 2016. I found out about it in 2017. And I forgave her, so we stayed together for a couple of years after that. But um she had a second one, again, that I know of, in 2019, and that's what led to our ultimate
Hmm.
split. But when she informed me a couple of days before Thanksgiving in 2019 that we were done, it was the same thing. She's like, "Yeah, we're done." I was kind of emotionally prepared for it. It's kind of like, "Well, okay." And I
Okay.
was crushed, but
Yep.
we'd been separated. I'd been living in a hotel. I did the Kramer versus Kramer stupidity, and I left for a month.
Don't leave. Don't leave.
Yeah, I've learned that lesson, unfortunately. Uh, but and by the way, I left because she said she needed space. And the reality is she needed privacy to plan her exit. So that's another reason to not leave. But anyway, I left, and it was 4 weeks later that I realized she was working to plan her exit. But she said, "Well, we're done." I said, "Well, I'm coming back home." And I did. I moved right back in. I said, "If you don't want to live with me, you can leave." And we ended up staying in the house together for just a month while she moved, well, she got her stuff
Yeah.
ready to move to in with her boyfriend. But I'm telling you, it's an interesting thing. You said something that it was really therapeutic for me because during that month, we're living together, not sleeping together, but we're living together. And I'm watching her already be completely detached from me.
Yeah.
And I was able to go, oh, crap. So it didn't hit me all of a sudden. It was like a month of, wow, I, I'm able to detach from her because she is so detached from me. And then
I
so
think that
it was
helps with your
less of a
healing
blow.
process too.
Yeah.
When you become detached, the healing process I think is so much easier, so much better and thorough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, people, of course, accuse me literally every single day of my life because I'm so present on TikTok and I talk about my divorce and everything. They like, you need to move on. You know what? I spend about 5 minutes a day thinking about my ex marriage, and it's usually when I'm on
Yep.
a podcast or when I'm making a TikTok. The rest of the time, I'm busy designing software. So
Yep.
that's all I care about. Well, let's talk about the divorce then. So she files the second time, which stuck. Uh, and tell us about that. So she files. At that point, did one of you move out?
No, still stayed in. Stayed in for a few more months, and then she moved out. She moved into her own place, and conveniently left the kids with me, which was fine.
Mm-hmm.
They were with me for a few more months, which is no big deal because I'm a great father. Um, if I say so myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, that was really weird that you leave and leave your kids. I thought that was strange, but hell, I took them. What the
Sure.
hell? So she had her own place. Eventually, I moved into a rental, and then we did the kid thing. We did, which I think is so convenient, the week on, week off. Change on Sundays. I mean, that was perfect for us. They
Mm-hmm.
were at the same school. Uh, one of my kids was driving, so that made it so simple too. One was driving, and so they could do the change, but back and forth. Um, um, the divorce process lasted 18 months from start to
Mm-hmm.
finish, mainly because of the accounting and the practice and going through the figures and this, that, and the other. Um, Her lawyer did try that Kramer versus Kramer stuff of keeping the kids or give me the kids 1 weekend, a 1 weekend every other week, and I said no, and I fought for every other week, which was fine, 50%. Um, just a lot of lawyer thing, that I still have a sour taste in my mouth with the lawyer thing. It got to the point where I figured out that I had to either text her, it was a female, text her or email her and not talk to her because it came out cheaper there because she was long-winded
Interesting.
and I heard
Oh.
I heard the gas ding ding ding. I said, no, no, we're not doing this. Uh, but that process wasn't bad. Uh, the kids came over every other week, and that was good. I was a miserable wreck the first month or two when I lost them every other week. Uh, then then it was interesting. Was I kind of felt guilty because after a week, I look forward to them leaving.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, guys, I can't wait for you guys to go to your moms. And I felt guilty, but people tell me that's just a normal way of doing things because you're parenting all by yourself for a week with three kids, and they need a break. So that was very interesting. Where I would went through that. I call it a parental dichotomy.
That's a great way to look at it because I love my kids. I love them, and we didn't do the week on week off, but I had them, 3 or 4 nights a week. They were at my house, and this is after my first marriage, and but when they would leave, it was a relief. And it doesn't mean I didn't love them,
Yeah.
and I think that anyone who has their kids full time, if they're honest, they would admit that it would be nice to send the kids away for a few days.
Oh heck yeah.
And anybody who says, "Oh, I could never send my kids away for a few days,"
They're
well,
lying.
you're a liar.
Freaking lying.
You're a liar.
They're lying.
Exactly. Well, okay, so you've got this 18-month divorce. So I'm assuming when you say they had to do all the numbers for the practice, you're talking some sort of forensic accounting to say how much your practice is worth,
Correct.
therefore how much
Yep.
she gets. Now, ultimately, and some might call that greed or whatever, but I mean, the fact of the matter is she stayed at home. At this point, I assume she's gone back to work, correct?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
No.
So she got her own place.
She doesn't have
She
to work at
got
this point. Yeah.
because
That's
of
that's
alimony?
yes. Yes. Yeah. The alimony still goes, but that's a different story.
Did you know you can get divorced without hiring an attorney? Let ourdivorce.com guide you through our 3-step process for a simple flat fee. Visit ourdivorce.com to learn more and get started today.
All right, so 18 months. So this was 2010, 2011, give or take, that
Yep.
the divorce was final.
It was final March 1st, 2011.
That's my birthday.
Oh, I was happy on your birthday on 2011. Yeah.
Let's see. What was I doing I was happy on my birthday in 2011. Uh, my divorcery, by the way, is Valentine's Day. Judge signed it
Wow.
on February 14th. So,
Wow.
so two of my favorite days, February 14th and my birthday, March 1st, 2 weeks
March
later.
1st. Wow.
Okay. 18 months. How much did it end up costing you? Again, in attorney's fees is really what I'm talking about. Let's not talk alimony yet.
You know, attorney fees was probably 17. And at the end, there was a motion that her lawyer filed that she wanted me to pay for her attorney fees,
Mm-hmm.
which happens a lot, I guess.
Yep.
So I remember, and they were meeting like that following week with, we did a um, arbitrator. And so they were meeting with the arbitrator that week to decide that if I would pay attorney fees. So before my lawyer went, I told her, if you lose this motion, you'll never get paid. So it will behoove you to win this motion. That was the only time I played hardball. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot pay for two attorney peeps. So she
Mm-hmm.
won it. So yeah, that was the one thing. And
Do you remember how much she wanted you to pay?
oh, I think it was the same 17, 18, 20. Yeah. Yeah.
So between the
Some
two
the
of
same.
you guys ended up paying
40.
35,
Yeah,
40 grand
35, 40. Yeah. Yeah. A
in
friend of mine told me,
2011.
oh yeah, that was back then. Now I can't imagine what it costs now.
Yeah, it'd be 50, 60, 70 grand. Easy.
Oh, jeez. Um, I had to buy her out of the building. I have a building here. I had to buy her out of the practice. That that cost me a couple hundred. Um, but I tell people it was worth it. If it would have cost my left arm at that point, I would have given it up. And I pretty much had to rebuild the practice up from there. Um, the child support was negligible. The alimony keeps going. The alimony gets revisited when I retire. So
Mm-hmm.
looking forward to that. Um, the money thing used to really bug me. At this point, it's more of a freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had to flip that script and realize that there's not a price for happiness. Happiness costs a lot of money sometime, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
Plus, happiness is still tax deductible.
Is it? I thought
Yes,
that
prior 2018. Yes, if your decree was prior 2018, it's still tax deductible.
got it.
Yeah.
Because it didn't.
Yep.
So new people who got divorced after 2018, they
Oh yeah,
can't
they're
deduct
bending
their.
over. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, so you got divorced in 2011, give or take, right? And you've been paying alimony since. Um, and then it gets revisited when you retire.
Correct.
But in the meantime, you also, in addition to alimony, you had to pay her, you had to buy her out of the building,
Yep.
which I assume went in installments. You didn't just write a
Yep.
check, or did
Oh
you?
God, yes, yes.
Installments. Um, and then what about the practice? I don't know how that works.
They value the practice between patients, number of patients, number of rooms, sundries, number of employees. There's some figure that they use, and so they did half of that and half the building. But what was nice though, the building still had a mortgage on it, so it wasn't totally paid off, which made it nice.
Hmm.
So since then, I paid the building off, and everything is totally mine, not hers. She has no feelers to the
Claim.
practice of the building at this point. So, like I said,
Yeah.
it was totally worth it. It's at first it was a hard pill to swallow every month. Cutting that check now it's like no big deal. It's just like a gnat on an elephant's ass, or a really small gnat.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that. So let's talk about that post-divorce life. So the judge signs it on my birthday. You're a free man that still has a bunch of checks to write for the next 20 or so on years. Um, just I'm not going to ask for exact amounts because it's none of my business, but I am curious based on the amounts of money that you were paying her for the practice, the building, and the alimony. I can understand why she probably didn't need to work, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. She's living comfortably right now.
Mm,
So, and that's okay. You have to really, um, uh, men are good at compartmentalization. I love that word. Having to put that over there and not worry about it. So it works. Yeah.
well,
Post divorce, um, first couple of, I would say first couple of years were tough. Just doling out that money, and now 10, 12 years later, it's like, okay. But I didn't know that I would be in a better spot now than I was back then.
what do you mean by that?
Mentally, financially,
Oh,
all
okay.
that stuff. Yeah.
Are you and Bicycle on speaking terms at all?
No. Text and
Since
email
okay,
the whole time. Yeah.
so right
Text
from
and
the
email.
get go, it's been in writing or nothing.
Yep. Text and email. Which is
I,
unfortunate. And the people that can talk to their exes, I really find that strange, but I do believe that happens. But for me, it just didn't work. When I was done, I was totally done. I think she told one of our friends that after our divorce that we could date again and learn to love her. Man, please.
date
Uh-uh.
again?
Yes, date again and learn to love her again.
Like
That's an
learn to love her
expensive
as in
date.
get back together, or just learn to
Yes,
love her as a person?
get back together.
Oh, see, I've never understood that.
I
I
know. Every time I hear that, I'm like, wow. That's called counseling at the beginnings. It's a lot cheaper.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess so you get divorced. Your kids are in high school and middle school. They go back and forth. They're in their late 20s now. Then
Yes. 29, 28, 26. Yep.
okay. And are they married?
Nobody's married. No.
Okay.
Two went to
So that's gonna
college. One didn't go to college. Yeah.
so what's gonna be interesting is when they do, assuming at some point somebody gets married or has a baby or whatever, all of a sudden you and your ex are gonna end up interacting. You and Bicycle.
Well, we kind of did that a couple, probably about 18 months ago. My daughter got an award. She works for a corporation up in Denver during COVID. So they had the ceremony in a park outside so people could social distance. So we went up, me and my girlfriend went up, and then she was there, but nothing was said. It's cordial. She was on one side of
Cordial.
the park, I was on the other. Yeah. So
Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, I'll tell you, it's an interesting thing because my when Trinity and I split, we were on very friendly terms. That 1 month that I mentioned that I
Mhm.
helped her pack her stuff so she could move it to Philadelphia to be with her boyfriend, and I saw her detached past tense from me, so I could detach present tense from her over that month was really great. And then when I rented a place after we sold the house, I moved in with her son and my boys as roommates
Mhm.
and had just a great time. And for the first several months, she and I were quite friendly. Again, she lived in Philadelphia. We'd talk every, 2 or 3 days even. And that changed when I published my first TikTok. Uh, um,
You bad boy.
well, and that's the thing is that, it wasn't meant to shame her. If I
Yeah.
wanted to shame her, I would have shown pictures and used her real name and everything else. That wasn't about shaming her. This was about telling my story. But she did not like the fact that
Yeah.
telling my story wasn't very flattering to her. And so we didn't talk. But then about a year, about 6 months later, she started trying to, I don't want to call it rekindle the friendship, but she wanted it to be more than I just remember the text that she sent me. I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan. And
Mhm.
she texted me one day and out of the blue and said, "Hey, did you know that Aaron Rodgers is hosting Jeopardy this week?" And I remember looking at it just thinking, "Yeah, I'm fully aware, believe me. But also, this is not the kind of conversation I want to have with my ex-wife."
Right.
And so I sat on it for a couple of days and I wrote her back and said, "Hey, going forward, let's just limit our communication to things with the kids, taxes, or legal issues."
Yeah.
And she's honored that, and I appreciate that. Um, but let's talk about what's happened since your divorce. So you and Bicycle don't have a real relationship.
Yep.
Your kids are grown, so there's hardly anything to really talk about, which is nice. You mentioned that you have a girlfriend,
Well,
but let's talk about what you do,
let's
and
back
let's
up a
talk
little
about your
bit.
life.
Yeah. Um, I was a serial dater.
Oh,
Oh my gosh, yeah. Um, my staff used to say that I didn't want to be alone, which is not the case, staff. It just happened like that. Um, I I've seen, I've dated. Uh, back up. So after I got divorced, I wrote a book.
oh,
Yes,
what's it called?
it's called Rebound. It's not just for basketball.
I love that.
It is a, believe it or not, it is a erotic divorce recovery novel.
Erotic divorce recovery
Your
novel.
face is priceless. You go to Amazon, you search it, it's there. Rebound is just not for basketball.
Is it available on audiobook?
I don't know. I don't know. It's not very long because I don't have a very long attention span. Or is it that I don't have an attention span or I don't last long? One of the two, but
Hey, well, if you don't have it on audiobook, I'll still go buy it, but I want it on audiobook with your voice reading it.
yeah. It's a very, it was a cathartic thing to do. You know, putting a book on Kindle was, or Amazon was a very interesting experience, like a lot of work, but once it got it done, it's like having a new baby in your hand. So I
Mhm.
did that, and people thought I was crazy, and people thought I couldn't do it. And the ones that say I couldn't do it, I say, oh, hell no, I'm doing this. And I did that probably a year or two after the divorce, and then I dated. And, um, I did a lot of dating where I stayed too long.
Mm.
Like 6 months, year, 18 months. Yeah, too long. I finally met somebody very nice, probably 3, 4 years ago, and we've been hanging out and having a good time. No drama. That's my thing, man. No drama. The drama factor has to be non-existent, and I didn't have that when I was dating.
Mhm.
I dated women with Sometimes they don't have the same raising kid quotient as you do. You don't raise kids the same. Um, I dated a girl where I had to. She had guests in her house where I had to lock my laptop and phone in my car at night when I stayed the night because things got lifted. So yeah,
Wow.
it was
Yeah, that's
crazy.
not good.
But you go through those things and hopefully you learn from them. But every stepping stone is something that you figure out that you don't want. But you
Hmm.
have to realize that in order to make a better decision next time.
Yeah, it's funny. I did a series on TikTok. We do a lot on TikTok, obviously,
Obviously.
and we I did a 9-part series about some of my crazy dating stories, post divorce dating stories, and it, uh, it I went on nine dates is what I talk about. And I went on a hell of a lot more than 9 dates over a couple of year period, but I those were the crazy ones. And people will say you're a serial dater. You dated too much. Uh, you're the common denominator. It's like, well, of course they're my stories, duh.
Yeah.
But um, and what's interesting, by the way, is of course those 9 women they all have crazy stories, and they're the common denominator.
Yeah.
But what I learned through that process, and I tried to do them in chronological order as best I could remember, e- each time there was a lesson that you learned that you tried to do better or fix for the next time so that you don't have a crazy date next time.
Yep.
But yeah, anyway, so um, let's talk about. I know that you do a lot of work with people now, helping them recover from divorce. So you wrote a book that I definitely will go pick up. But what else? You stay involved in this community. You've got a podcast. You've got help. Tell us what you're doing for others.
Well, my first part was I did a divorce recovery seminar at a local church downtown Colorado Springs called Divorce Recovery Workshop, and it's a faith based Lutheran thing. And so I learned a lot from that. I didn't want to go, but a friend of mine made me go, and I learned a lot from that. And then I became a facilitator, and I facilitated for about 7 8 years, probably
Hmm.
5 6 classes. And every class, I learned something more about myself when I was actually facilitating. So that was kind of cool. So I was dating this girl, and we broke up, and I had a 3 month hiatus. That was my longest breakup, I guess, 3 months. And so I decided, I said, hey, I'm going to do a divorce recovery podcast. So I researched, looked at Pat Flynn online, did some YouTube videos, got some equipment. So I started Divorce Devil Podcast in 2016. If the word divorce is in your normal vocabulary, then this podcast is for you. Specializing in one of the most taboo subjects in natural conversations, this is a podcast about real people talking about real divorce. The Divorce Devil Podcast. Don't heal from divorce without it. And so I've had friends on there from the divorce recovery process. I've had my kids on there. I've had ex girlfriends on there, which is interesting. Um, I've had a psychologist on there, and we talk about post divorce recovery strategies. And now I actually have a co-host, Rachel, and she's this girl straight from Jersey. And man, it gets raw sometimes, and she is hilarious. Oh my god! We did a we did a podcast a couple of weeks ago about laughter and divorce. Oh my god! I almost peed my pants. We were telling divorce jokes off and on the whole podcast. Oh, I'll have to send it to you. But
Yeah.
yeah, so doing that and reaching out to people, I'm in the process of trying to write a divorce recovery online course through
Oh, really?
Soundcard. Yeah, and so I've been doing the content for that and recording videos, and it's a lot of work. Like I think I told before that once you get divorced, you're in that club, and
Yeah.
it's a specified club, and you're always a member. Even if you get remarried, you're still a member of that club because you were once divorced.
Yep.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask a question that a lot of our listeners will probably ask. I'm just going to ask it as bluntly as they're probably going to. Don't you think it's time to move on? Why are you so focused on divorce? It's been 12 years or whatever.
That's a good question. I can pawn that off onto when I was doing divorce recovery, and I was actually a facilitator. And just like I felt guilty when I wished my kids were gone, I felt guilty. I didn't relish in other people's pain, but I relished in them healing from week to week to week. So the divorce recovery process, I mean, the workshop was only 7 weeks on Wednesday night for 2 hours. So seeing that 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 gain of that positivity gain in each of the students from week 1 to week 7 was awesome. It was almost like a
Yeah.
drug, just to help somebody, and we're here to, if you can help one person, then it's worth it. Doesn't matter, 1,000, 10,000, but if you can help one person, that's all that matters.
Good for you. So this isn't about you wallowing in divorce. This is about
No.
helping other people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Plus,
Good for
plus you
you.
get to get on each week and talk shit and just say what you want to say. So yeah, that's also fun.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Talk about being a poor black child. Yes. My
Okay.
story? Okay.
So let's just jump right into this, what I consider to be one of the most important parts of this podcast. And again, this podcast isn't just about hearing a salacious story or anything like that. It's about trying to help people learn. So you've been through the ringer, you've taught people, you've helped people, you have a podcast, you've written a book, you've done a lot on this subject. But if you could
And a
boil it all
full-time
down,
job.
oh, yeah, and a full-time job. If you could boil it all down, what advice are you going to offer to our listeners?
God, you told me to stick to one. Man.
I'll give you two.
Okay. Number one, happiness is not overrated. Your happiness is paramount in order to live a good life, um, to help other people live a good life. Um, you don't have to have a podcast to help somebody. You can just be happy and be positive and just help each other. And that's what's going on now in the world. There's not enough help. Um, and the one thing that deals with divorce, never stay for the kids. Kids know. Kids can tell. Kids are not dumb. Kids know when you're unhappy. Um, being a man from divorce family and having a divorce is kind of interesting, but um, kids need to be happy too, and sometimes they're happy going to two houses more so than just one. So that's my spiel, and I'm sticking to it.
I love it. I love how you started that. Happiness is not overrated.
No,
That's
it's not.
that's the title of this episode, by the way.
not not I want to ride my bicycle.
Well, that's great. David, thank you so much. This has been a true pleasure meeting you and having you on the show. And tell everybody again, Divorce Devil, how do they
Divorce
find you?
Devil podcast. Divorce Devil podcast. We're on Stitcher, Apple, all the major players. What's that? Spotify. Yeah. So look for us. We got about 80 episodes out there. We have a good time. Rachel and I have a good time. It's not that boring podcast. We do laugh. I do some singing, which is
Oh,
very interesting. But we have a good time, and we're here to help people. So there you go.
wow. Such simple and powerful advice. And how about that quote? Happiness is not overrated. That just had to be the title of the episode, right? So, after paying tens of thousands in legal fees for his divorce, followed by hundreds of thousands for the dental practice in the building, and then hundreds of thousands more in alimony, Dave still isn't bitter. Instead, Dave has written a book, coached hundreds of men through their divorces, and launched a successful podcast, all while working full-time. I hope I can be like Dave when I grow up. I mean, seriously. I've put a link to Dave's book and to the Divorce Devil podcast in the show notes. I hope you'll show Dave some love. Thinking of love? If you love our show, or even if you just like it a lot, please tell the world by taking just a few seconds right now to give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. It only takes a minute, and it really helps us grow the audience. That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening. Have an amazing week, everyone. Bye.
It's a great day, I'm feeling good. Oh, the possibilities of what I could do with the world at my fingertips. My imagination brings a smile up to my lips.
Divorce doesn't have to be complicated. Our Divorce.com's 3-step procedure provides a simple and affordable process that you can follow at your own pace. Save thousands by visiting ourdivorce.com today.